remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and the comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who've also received invites to the meeting. Thank you for that. Lindsay, do we have any apologies?
An apology from Councillor Law. Convener will now move to a roll call. The following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Brennan. Present in person. Councillor Clockerty.
Present in person.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Maguire.
Present remotely.
Provost Mackenzie.
In the chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present remotely.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
No. We move to the performance management, agenda item number 2, the Police Scotland performance report. Before we start, could I just thank Chief Superintendent McCready for the visit we had to Govan, for the journey of a call. I think those that were there found it very useful indeed. It was a really fascinating afternoon. Could you pass on our thanks to our senior management team? Also, from a personal note, can I apologise for not making the day with the pupils at Port Glasgow Police Station. I was detained an extra night at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. They wouldn't let me out. They let me out the next day. So I do apologise for that. Next time you have one, would you invite me? Chief Superintendent, it's down to you.
Yeah, thank you, Convener, and just want to replicate my thanks to the staff first and foremost, but also to yourselves for your attendance. I think the important function of this committee is only served if you understand as well as possible the functions of us, the fire service and our partnerships. So your attendance at the session was really appreciated and valued by us, and I think it will contribute to appropriate scrutiny going forward. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join you in the session. I was committed out with the force area, but I will pass on your thanks.
Thank you.
In respect to the report itself, today I'll present the report for note and I'll pull out a number of items, both positive and challenging. And you'll note in terms of managing expectations that the performance period that we're reporting on for administrative reasons is up to and including the 31st of December, so there is a degree of latency in terms of that reporting. The incidents, you will note from the report, are increased 6.6%, greater than we had this time last year. I've reported previously, and you will have heard on the input, possibly from Paul Wilson, the Chief Superintendent at our Contact Command and Control Division, that some of that was driven up by the challenges with Samsung and Android app changes, which increased our silent 999 calls. However, that has now sort of levelled out, but we still carry a degree of increased reporting as a result of it throughout the year. Much of the incidents themselves that we are reporting, you might naturally assume that these incidents relate to crime, but the committee will be well cited in the fact that only 20% of our work on a day-to-day basis across the organisation and in Inverclyde relates to criminal matters. Much of our activity is driven by some of the more deeply rooted societal challenges that we're all well attuned to, increases in mental ill health, etc. And we're seeing as a service that some of those incidents are driven up by increased requests from external agencies. So on a Friday afternoon, we can evidence that our call demand goes through the roof as some agencies start to close down for the weekend, and that risk is transferred to the police service to manage on their behalf. It is something the organisation is looking at in partnership. It would be remiss of us to just simply refuse to do that activity, as we may have seen across other jurisdictions. It's something that the Chief has within her sights and we will focus on so that we can more appropriately address some of our core issues as an organisation, in particular crime and crime prevention. In respect of violent crime, there has been a slight increase in terms of violent crime, statistically insignificant, but that in no way plays down the impact it has on individuals. A 0.9% increase in violent crime. I'm disappointed to a degree that we see any increase in violent crime. We continue to control it at the previously recorded levels. However, I'm pleased to say that over 2/3 of violent crime reported to the police is detected thereafter, and the offender reported to the Crown Office Procurator Fiscal Service for consideration of prosecution. To give you some assurance, any serious or organised crime is investigated by our Criminal Investigation Department. We have sufficient resources, sufficient training to deal with that, and where we can get ahead of the curve, the focus on prevention we share across our partnership forums. You may have seen it, it may have been touched on in your journey of a call, but we now have access to the National Crime Application across Scotland. That provides us a far clearer picture of where criminality is occurring at a local level. And whereas in the past we would have had to task and ask analysts to complete a number of spreadsheets around data to give us crime and heat mapping, we can now do that at the touch of a button, which will help us focus our patrols and patrol matrices appropriately. So that's a really positive progression in terms of our collation of data and access to information. In relation to disorder and antisocial behaviour, I'm pleased to report that we've seen a reduction of 7.1% year to date. Fire raising remains consistently challenging, not risen significantly, but it's consistent with previous year reporting. The majority of offences that we see as a service continue to be targeted at wheelie bins and litter and rubbish, etc., or derelict property, but our colleagues in fire will give you a much more accurate reflection of the trends. However, what I would say is it remains challenging, and even if it is a wheelie bin on fire, for example, it's a removal of resources from an incident which might subsequently be reported, which puts the public, our colleagues in the fire service and police officers at risk. So it is something we will continue to tackle through the multi-agency fire raising group. In respect to hate crime, there's been a slight decrease. I was discussing the Chief Inspector on the way here. It was pleasing to see that we've not seen anything in relation to the Middle East conflict playing out across our systems. Not to say that there isn't anything that perhaps has remained unreported, but at the minute there is nothing that has come to our attention. In relation to sexual crime, I welcome the decrease in relation to sexual crime, down 2.9%. Notably, there has been a sharp increase in the detection rate, rising to 65.7% of crimes, up from 52.4% last year. The one thing I would say, Convener, is whilst it's pleasing to see, we cannot be complacent, and I don't think there's anybody in this room who believes for a second that all sexual crime is reported to police. So therefore, I would ask that each and every one of us continues to try and encourage people to come forward and report sexual crime. On a very similar vein, we've seen a reduction in domestic abuse incidents by 13.4%. The committee will remember, or perhaps remember, that this was previously my profile as a detective superintendent some years ago. So it's an area that is very important to me, both individually and also as a divisional commander. We know that domestic abuse remains significantly underreported. We know it takes multiple instances of abuse before somebody comes forward and has the confidence to report to us. And again, I would ask members of the panel and others within the community to encourage people to come forward. I visited the Public Protection Unit last month, visiting and spoke to officers across the domestic abuse portfolio as well as in other portfolios, and we do well in our use of the disclosure scheme for domestic abuse. And again, that's an opportunity for us to tell people who are entering newly formed relationships, that they are perhaps getting into a relationship with somebody with an abusive past, but it also allows the public to ask us, almost as I describe an MOT on their new partner, is this person safe and appropriate for me going forward, or do they have a history of harm in the past? In terms of missing people, we have seen a small rise, 5% more reports in this area, and I've previously updated the panel around the challenges that missing people cause for us as a service, but more concerningly, the challenge they cause for themselves in respect of the risk they may expose themselves to, particularly children who are missing from home or from care environments. And then lastly, a couple of matters beyond the report itself. I want to touch on the estates. We held the emergency scrutiny session on the 25th of January in this room, where I provided updates on everybody. The consultation closes on the 31st. I thank everybody for their contribution, but encourage anybody who's perhaps waiting for a last minute submission to please speak now or forever hold your peace. Thereafter, once the content of that has been considered, we will come back with proposals, recommendations and further consultation. In terms of that, because it is such an important matter, not just to me but to the communities and to yourselves, do I continue to give my commitment that in terms of the custody provision, I will continue to advocate for an appropriate CELS custody provision which meets the needs of the communities here and also the needs of my officers and staff. Lastly, proportionate response to crime. I know you had a bespoke session on this when you did the journey of the call, so I don't intend on labouring it, but I have communicated with everybody directly that we've been notified since the last panel sat that will be rolled out. We're waiting to see what the timescales for that will be. I know there will be some concerns because it's change and nobody likes change, that's the reality of it. I would like to give you my personal assurance, and I hope you take some comfort from it, because I have been, I believe, incredibly honest in the past, even if it may go against the stance of the organisation. I am not concerned about this. Officers are applying this discretion. In any case, we are simply putting a label to something which has happened time immemorial in the police. And I think that transparency is something that is very helpful. We're going to have another couple of drop-in sessions where we can address specific questions, and I'll communicate the dates to that in the coming days. We're just firming that up at the station. So thank you.
I think certainly the proportionate response plans were put very clearly to us, and I think those who attended there were really understood how you're going to handle that. And I don't hold any fears for it, having heard what I heard midday at Govan. I'll open this up to my colleagues. Any questions? Councillor Moran.
Thank you, Convener. Can I echo your comments regarding the visit? It was really good to, you know, and those of us who maybe know I agree with Ted, realise that as a way forward, we have to make the best of it. We've got to make less go forward, and we fully understand that. But the thing that interests me most about it, although we're working in different ways, the core principles of Police Scotland still seem to be the same. That is to do the job they can, the best they can with the equipment that they've got. And the enthusiasm of the staff, it really, I would took away from it. We're so enthusiastic what they've done. You know, it might be a different way of doing things, but it certainly is the same message, same core principles. I keep this safe, the public safe. Also on the visit to CELS, I was very impressed, not with the CELS themselves, but with the staff there, who fundamentally was a human rights issue. Anyone who finds themselves in that position, they have to get in there, you know, and any of us could end up in that situation. And the officer in charge gave me a good example of a rugby match, which I thought it brought home to say anyone can end up in there. And if you're in there, it's a horrible place, but at least you know that the staff are looking at your well-being first and foremost. So I want to thank for that. I have a couple of questions on the report itself, if that's all right. The first one, Chief Inspector, is the shoplifting is up at 35 point compared to the previous year. Now, there's been a lot of publicity about shoplifting and our trade union colleagues and that as well, but assaults on staff in shops. Is there any particular reason for that big jump? You know, is it because at one time, I was at with David, they used to be trained with people coming into different places, take down to the retail park to carry out shoplifting, and with a lot of intelligence on that, and I hope that's still in place. So, is there any reason why we have that sort of jump to 30.5?
Yeah, thanks. I'll maybe come into some specific details from Chief Inspector Kane in a second, but applying a bit of professional judgment, a bit of analytical expertise that we have within the centre. The cost of living crisis is undoubtedly a causal factor. You know, undoubtedly that is what is driving this. People are finding it harder to live on a day-by-day basis, and I think that's played out fairly strongly within our media and within some of the trends that we see on a day-to-day basis. The next is that cost of living crisis impacts on retail as well, and empirically that would suggest that people start to cut back on where they may perceive there may be cost savings, so security, for example, and that's where we start to see, and I know we're not focusing on this just now, that point of conflict where people are protected to commit a crime. We then start to see an increase in hate crime because generally the population group which is employed in the security has a higher rate of ethnic diversity. So we start to see that increase in prevalence in terms of hate crime. And then secondly is availability. You know, there are far more large retail parks within the Inverclyde area than there would have been 10, 15, 20 years ago, something I'm confident everybody here welcomes. But that is just an opportunity, and particularly where people see premises which are large national conglomerates, they perhaps perceive it as a victimless crime and therefore less of an insult to their own community. But Damien, can I just invite him just for some local context?
Just what the Chief Super said, so bear in mind this goes back to the last April through December. Professional judgment has a lot of lobbies into cost of living. However, more recently, and I'm talking about maybe November, December to come, there's actually a wee turnaround in that. A lot of the thefts that have been reported. I've spoken to my colleagues to deal with that at the front end. Their professional opinion is starting to sway slightly. So some of the figures from this report are undoubtedly down to cost of living. What I'm now seeing more recently is the larger stores, the bigger stores, as the Commander said, which are said to be victimless crimes. They're being targeted more and more often. We're seeing more organised groups coming from elsewhere. We're stealing from bigger stores and without making it obvious which location I'm talking about. The newer stores in the outskirts of Inverclyde that are being targeted with people coming in, easy escape route out of Inverclyde. But moreover, last year we did a bit of analytical work to try and see what has been stolen, what's the purpose behind it, where's our stolen property going. I think that was maybe a question you raised before, Councillor, a few boards ago. So we found the alcohol thefts actually 82%, which is significant. So yes, that could be linked to the cost of living, but it's also quite consistent with people themselves that have vulnerabilities through alcohol abuse, which we try to have locally through ADP and other sectors to try and tackle. That's certainly one of the factors. We do interviews of prisoners when they're in. As you know, as you saw from the custody suite, we do a lot of care and compassionate questioning of the prisoners, not just when they're in, but when they're leaving. We signpost them to other groups to try and get them off drinking drugs. It's becoming pretty obvious in those informal chats that a lot of the people we are looking at fortunate with have these addictions that haven't been successfully addressed, despite being offered a number of methods to try and help. But the overall acquisitive crime is up significantly, nearly 25%, but when you break it down, the shoplifting makes up a significant number. But moreover, the frauds are actually up 55%, 164, and we've discussed this at length before, including one of the spotlights last year about cybercrime. A lot of these acquisitive crimes are actually frauds that happen online, and they are very difficult to detect and identify the offenders, not all of which would be local or even within the UK. So that's a challenge, and that's something we focus heavily on prevention, because and we try and target that towards the demographic, the population who we find are being the victims of these sort of crimes. But we're also finding that common thefts, common thefts, what I mean is something with no aggravation. It's not a theft by shoplifting, theft by shoplifting. One thing we're noticing, which I do genuinely believe is strong link to the cost of living crisis, theft of fuels is significant now, and that was something that's been different for a number of years. It's always been an issue. We do have a lot of good cooperation with the staff and garages. We do get good defections from this, but the truth is it's very, very hard to prevent, regardless of what advice is given to the staff, because somebody fills up, this is the national process. They can leave without paying. It's very difficult to stop. We do have good reporting mechanisms, and we give a lot of good preventive advice to garages, other repeat victim premises to upgrade their CCTV. So we're alert to the dishonesty issues, as you know, from a couple of months ago, update the panel. We had a bespoke quiz for crime action plan. That actually came in just at the tail end of this reporting period. So I'm confident going forward in future panels, we're going to start seeing the benefits of that. We're still using the exclusion zones that we spoke at length about, and we're still giving a lot of remarks to the Crown and Property Fiscal Service about our recommendations. Our background is somebody stealing to feed their kids, is somebody stealing due to cost of living, should they be shown a back compassion and a warning letter, diversion, or is it somebody who's simply a repeat offender with, in fact, one of my colleagues, one of the most prolific offenders, is actually already backed up over 120 convictions, mainly for shoplifting, getting imprisonment, released and come back out as a partner. So we do know how these top 5, top 10 offenders are. We do everything within our gift to try and identify these people, brief the cops, and make sure we're trying to divert them from crime or arrest them where they committed. But being honest, that is a challenge. Hope that gives you a wee bit of
No, thank you for. We got what?
Yeah, carry on, Rob.
It's I raised on the day, and I think the Chief Superintendent's kind of touched on it. It's the calls, for mental health issues, and I said on the day I've been watching a programme. Some of the forces in England are talking about not responding to them because it takes so much time, and it's probably not the proper service to deal with it. But I know the new Chief Constable says they don't think that'll happen in Scotland. We'll answer every call. So, is there any maybe work with other parties, for the health and social care to try and help that situation with somebody obviously going in the police bit to do their service? And I know it's a lot of your time and energy. If you could maybe put it to someone who could deal with it better.
No, it's a very topical question, Councillor. So the initiative you're referring to, Oversight started already a number of years ago. They reviewed their work streams and realised that over 80% of their work was coming back to non-crime incidents. We're in a similar position now. They tried a pilot for a year, which turned around the police response to traditional crimes, because they basically said, no, we are not going to respond to certain areas of concern that other agencies are better placed to deal with. Latterly, every other force in England moved to put on. However, the very obvious point to make is the legislation in England and Wales is very different to that in Scotland. So there's probably two parts to this. One is a legislative reason. So we've split the duties from colleagues in England and Wales. One of our legislative duties under the Police and Fire Reform Act is to improve safety and well-being in the communities and people. So that's one legally we are obliged to assist people. That said, the Chief has been quite clear that we're not always the best agency to respond to certain crises. We're never going to turn away from someone who's at risk of missing child, someone who's at risk of harm. We're always going to assess every individual call and the threat, harm and risk, as we covered at the journey of a call, how we do the thrive assessment, the threat, harm, risk of each individual call. So just because someone doesn't have a crime at the end of it can quite often be higher priority for us to respond to whether there's a risk of harm to an individual, even by their own hand. But that said, we have been doing it for quite some time. We're not quite there yet. We're still trying to get other agencies who are the more appropriate agency to try and take preventive action. We do share information with social work, education. We've got a great relationship with all the departments in the local authority. We do share that information, and I think we're doing a really good job identifying those that really need care, and we're getting that information at the time with them to try and steer them on the correct path. But just to be clear, the Chief's direction stands that we're not going to walk away from those that are at risk of harm, but we are going to try and make sure that we tailor the response for individual, whether that's from the police or our partner agency.
Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, Robert.
Chief Superintendent.
Councillor Crowther.
Thank you, Convener.
Convener.
On
Chief Superintendent, would you speak?
Oh, sorry.
No, thanks, Craig. Just
You're definitely not Councillor Crowther.
tonight, Matthew. I was very much going to support the Chief Inspector there. The one area where I do think, and I have expressed this to both the Chief Constable, her executive, and the Scottish Police Authority, where I do think there is room for manoeuvre for us, is when we've discharged our duty of care to a person, and we take them to a place of safety, to, for example, a hospital, we find ourselves at times remaining with them far longer than we should.
Aye.
And the behaviours that have been driven in that respect are fear of scrutiny. Officers fear that if that individual comes to some form of adverse harm because they've walked out of hospital, completed suicide, etc., then the scrutiny will come straight back to the organisation. And that's indeed correct, because we are rightly one of the most scrutinised public bodies in Scotland. So I do think, with the interest of officers and staff, at the heart of that, in order to free up capacity to support other key policing activities, we do need to look at where our threshold lies, what our appetite for risk is, and when we've discharged our duty of care, what the appropriate point to walk away is, because at times we're now exceeding that care. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Are you getting any hope with that?
So yes, I have heard anecdotally there was a session held, I think it was with Public Health Scotland, certainly with our colleagues in health, where they rightly challenged who are we as a service to decide what care, medical care, psychological care somebody needed. And that's probably the first time I've heard that communicated openly. And as we all know, that's the start of the conversation, just to identify where are our parameters, where does our care start and stop, and where does someone else's then take over. So that was refreshing to hear. We just now need to turn that into action and clear guidance for our officers and staff.
I certainly am very pleased to have heard what you've just said. Councillor Crowther now.
That's right, thank you, Convener. On page 5 of the report, which is the disorder and antisocial behaviour, as the daylight hours get longer and hopefully the weather improves, that quite often is a sign for youth gatherings. The usual areas being the likes of Huddersfield, Port Glasgow, Coves Local Nature Reserve, and also at Argown Estate. And was just wondering if there is any either initiatives or joint operations with the British Rail Police and the wardens, so that anything could really be nipped in the bud. The area that I'm more concerned about was the Argown Estate, because of the threats that have been made to residents there, the damage that has been done to property, and also with fires being lit, especially if it becomes tinder dry and there is a lot of undergrowth, that it could obviously escalate.
Anne, do you want to say something?
Yes, to you, Convener. Just if officers should be mindful when they're answering that question to talk in generic terms and not about the specific locations and any strategic plans you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so you referenced a partner agency, British Transport Police in the first instance. So I'll come to David to give a local perspective in terms of plans generically. But just to give you some assurance that the Chief Super for British Transport Police and D Division, which is for Scotland, Jill Marshall, very supportive. We have a very good relationship, and she is more than happy to support us locally. So that's very encouraging from a commander's perspective. But I'll ask CIK to give you a bit more detail generically.
Thank you. If we just come in with another quick one on that. Also, at this time of year, you start to see more off-road vehicles, especially on the hills behind, and other areas. I'm just wondering again if there's any initiative to look out for the likes of the quad bikes or motorbikes that are being driven off-road.
Thanks, Councillor. In relation to your first point, so a lot of the work you've described has actually become daily business as usual. So the reference to partnership working with the wardens and the social team, RSLs, we've embedded that in daily practice. So on a daily basis, you're aware of the partnership work.
Yeah.
We pick up very quickly, and when there's emergent trends, when there's issues, pretty much same day, we task it out very concisely to the most appropriate agency. Likewise, partners with fire and the council, they'll feed in information that lets us do our job better. But over and above the daily business approach, we look ahead for any kind of calendar crimes, if that makes sense. So school holidays being an obvious one, without getting into details of which areas. We've had issues in certain areas over the last couple of years and we're predicting that these issues might arise if the weather's nice. So we've certain bespoke plans that are in place. We always have a weekend plan throughout the year, so 52 weeks of the year. We have a weekend disorder plan that evolves every week, and that's led by our local authority liaison. So unorthodox, but I find that officer's best placed because they know the police information, they sit over the hub as a sergeant, but they also embed with the council, so they're the best individual person to see the trends for that week. But thinking longer, further afield, as the commander said, we have really good embedded liaison with the BTP, British Transport Police, obviously the wardens. We share the information of where we think the issues are going to be, and we've got a more agency plan. So we have a couple on the go just now. Speaking generically, we have one that's been ongoing for a number of months in relation to fire reasons in a certain area that I've discussed with Councillor Paisley and Councillor Caffrey. That's, I think we're seeing the benefit of them. That issue's tailing off. We've had issues in outlying parts of Inverclyde that have been quite seasonal, and we were caught off guard a wee bit last year, I'm being quite honest. And we were quite surprised that early that disorder started the year. So we brought plans forward this year, we adapted from what happened last year, and that plan has been in place. There have been no emergency meetings for each of these things. The disorder plans bespoke to certain areas, as well as the bad reason. And what we're finding is we're getting a lot of value from bringing yourselves and the councillors with the ward areas, even just the point of view that helps you to then communicate that, reduce the fear of crime with your constituents, but also helps us get some feedback on where these trends are happening, so we can put a bit of preventative action in. Hope that covers that. The off-road plans, we've actually got a good calendar of events planned for all sorts of road traffic maps throughout the calendar year. In fact, this week, I won't give away any information about we're going to be stopping cars, but this week we're going to have cops out. We're embedding our own response and community cops into road traffic vehicles, because we've got the local knowledge, we've got advanced drivers and far better cars get around areas, so you will see them quite a lot over the coming weeks. And again, we're listening to the feedback we're getting from yourselves in the community, and where there's issues with speeding and off-road bikes, we're doing our best to try and have cops there at the right times.
Okay, that's lovely, thank you.
Councillor Daisy, I'm just going to take you, Scott, and then come to you.
Thanks very much. The echo the points from Police Scotland is that we are working very closely on this, and one of the things we have done is that we've sent out a joint letter from the chair of the partnership of all our senior officers to all young people about making them aware of the safety over the Easter period. As the Chief Inspector talked about, is that we were a wee bit caught out last year about things that were a wee bit earlier. We've got to take into consideration sometimes it's just a majority of young people. It's not every young person is involved in this, and we're trying to work closely with our young people. We're also engaging quite closely with our warden colleagues and Martin's team, but also looking at our education and getting into schools, and the prevention work that we're looking at is very strong about that. And I think it's important to understand that we will report back to this committee, but also the education community and the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Daisy.
Thanks, Convener. I've got two questions. Just first of all, around drug-related deaths. So, a previous committee asked Chief Inspector Kane a question about how effective naloxone is on synthetic opioids, and there wasn't an answer at that point. It was going to come back, so I believe that there is an answer now. If you don't mind.
Thanks, Councillor. So the query, if you recall, some point last year on the board, Councillor Daisley, it brought up a very relevant question. The concern was we're seeing synthetic opioids becoming more prevalent across the West, not just the UK. Around at the same time we were rolling out the naloxone. So just to recap, the naloxone is now rolled out to all operational constables, sergeant, inspectors in this division. The query was, would that work on synthetic opioids as opposed to traditional opioids? The answer is yes. So what we do is the training evolves as time goes on through trial and error. It's been a very, very successful piece of kit to carry, and I think it was quite honest at the panels last year. I was initially sceptical whether that's a role the police should discharge, but I've been proven to be incorrect. We've used it multiple times, we've used it several times where it's clearly saved life, and one of the learning points was that one dose is not always enough. So when this was rolled out to us, the training was great, they can use multiple doses, but I think the expectation from myself and some of the cops is lay people medically. We thought if it was going to work, it would work on the first occasion. We've had to use it up to 6 times, I think, to bring someone back.
On the one individual?
On one individual. Yeah. So the point is we review, these are recorded, not in division, not something I would have access to, these are recorded centrally in the review. So like all of our training, we review what's taking place, we look at best practice for going forward, and renew that training on an annual basis. So one of the learning points for us is that we need to have access to multiple bits of kit, multiple bits of stock, And it's certainly, and to be clear, this is just a stopgap to try and preserve life until we get medics on the scene or police in the fire service. We've actually had armed response vehicles down there like a number of times. They've got an enhanced level of life-saving capability. We try and keep that person alive until we get better training and support. So,
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
I think you got your answer.
I did. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Second question's around page 5 with the hate crime and specifically around the new hate crime bill legislation. So the aim of this bill is to help a modern Scotland to be a more tolerant and inclusive place, and of course it kicks in April the 1st. But with all new bills or legislation, there are always teething issues. So my question is, how are we approaching this locally, and are there any points of clarification around the bill that the public should be aware of?
Excellent question.
So very topical. So as you well know, the Hate Crime Act is going to become live for us on the 1st of April, so next week. In essence, and I'll read this from what I've got in front of me, it makes it very clear what the legislation intends to bring in. The key changes in legislation are basically bringing in all the existing legislation we have in place into one simple act. One act that's more straightforward to follow, it makes it easier for us to identify the appropriate legislation, but it's also going to be a bit further. So rather than tackling just certain areas where protected characteristics are targeted, it's bringing in additional 2 characteristics of age and variations in sex characteristics. We'll be getting rid of the crime of blasphemy, which I'm reliably informed the last prosecuted in 1843. So we're bringing the law a bit more up to date. There has been a huge amount of misunderstanding, I think, from what's been put in social media and even some traditional media outlets about what the police response to this act is going to be and what it's not going to be. So I think it's maybe prudent to touch on this. Most of the powers that we have today will still be in place next week. They'll just be covered in a different act. It'll all be consolidated into one act. So for the most part, we're not going to be changing how we do business. The new act is going to allow us to target people quite correctly that are breaking the law, but they're targeting an individual because they are seen as being subject to one protected characteristic, whereas previously only some of the characteristics were protected, for example, race. So it's trying to bring a bit of consistency to the approach police can take. That said, I do have some concern that we could see a substantial uplift in the amount of work police are going to take on in the early stages. Now, I don't think that's as a direct consequence of the wording of the legislation. I think if the legislation is available online, when you read it as, it will take a wee bit of time for the public and the police to understand exactly what it means and doesn't mean. But I think at the moment, most people are just seeing the headlines and they are supposing that there's going to be a crime that the police can prosecute and will target proactively just because someone says something in person or online that's offensive. That is not the case. There's certainly elements or safeguards within the Act that give us the ability to assess whether the criminal threshold has been reached. And to be clear, we are not championing officers to go out and look proactively for offences and try and make someone's conduct fit with a charge. But we do expect next week that the officers are going to get a lot of calls to the public, but there might be an expectation that what someone has said online might be criminal and might expect the police to go and act upon that. But we're a rights-based organisation. We're going to balance freedom of expression with every other right that the public should have. And I would urge anyone who's maybe not fully read into the legislation to take 5-10 minutes and read through what the actual legislation says. It's actually relatively clear. You cannot be arrested simply because you say somebody is offended by. There's a far higher bar that has to be met before Police Scotland are going to criminalise people. Well, that covers the initial point, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. I had another just follow-up from that.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but maybe direct this towards Mr. Scott. Is there anything that we should be taking ownership of in terms of this, in terms of educating as a local authority or anything like that?
You?
For yourself, I think it's very early stages at the moment with the new Act. I think it's important that we look at the Act in more detail and then come back with relevant things to take that forward. But I think as any new Act comes in, we will look at that and work with the Scotland colleagues to come back with a plan, and that's something we could look at going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks for that answer, Damien. I think you're going to have a job in your hands with this Act.
Yep.
I think you're going to have to make decisions. I think we live in a world now where people are quite easily offended, and I think you're going to have to make judgment calls, and I wish you well in that task. Councillor Maguire. She's dropped out. Oh, sorry, Natasha's dropped out. Any other questions at the moment?
She's gone.
No? Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was excellent. Thank you. I look forward to your next presentation next time. We now move to Scottish Fire and Rescue. With us today, we have the Area Commander, David McCarry, Group Commander, Rod Anderson, and Watch Commander, Paul McQueen. Welcome, gentlemen. Over to you.
Thanks, Peter. My members will be pleased to know they won't be hearing much of my dulcet tones today. I've brought Rod and Paul with me. As I said, with the reporting period, we thought we could take the opportunity to do a spotlight on our community action team, which is probably quite timely. We've just concluded earlier in the month, our first 2024 fire skills course, which is just one part of what the community action team do. So just before I go on, Rod, I just want to say thanks to my own team for delivering that. Thank you to Inverclyde Council for funding. Hugh and Ross were first class, the CLD team, and of course our emergency services partners, and young people. A real collective effort to pull together what was a really positive event, not just for the young people themselves, but also for ourselves and our partners at the Hub and the Court, culminating and passing out today. And I think the young people and their family and friends really appreciate what we've done, and I think it's a really positive event. So I'll bring Rod in to outline the work of the team, and then Paul, who heads up the team, will get the final together. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Premier. So as David said, today we'd like to provide an overview of our community action team within the East Renfrewshire and Inverclyde area, and to highlight some of the ongoing initiatives that they are involved in within Inverclyde. As he's also touched on this afternoon, we have Watch Commander Paul McQueen with us. So Paul is our outgoing local area liaison officer, or LALO. He is moving on the transfer to pastures new within the organisation, and we have Watch Commander Jim Cass will be coming in to be our incoming new LALO. So he's currently in the area and getting up to speed with his new role. In his role as the LALO, Paul will manage the day-to-day activities of our community action team. And when we're delivering our scrutiny reports, we very often mention the work of our CAD, so it was considered that given we wouldn't be able to provide our normal scrutiny report this time, that it would be beneficial to spotlight the team and provide members with an overview of some of the activities they're involved in Inverclyde. So the team themselves are based at our Community Safety Centre, which is located in the Paisley Community Fire Station, and the team consists of a Watch Commander, so just touch on Paul, who's also a LALO, a Group Commander, a Community Firefighter, and 3 non-uniformed community safety advocates. All of the team are involved in working daily within our communities to identify and support the most vulnerable, and their key functions are aligned to the SFRS National Prevention Strategy and also to our local fire plan, which includes the 6 indicators which are included in the scrutiny report we deliver to panel members. Now to run a bit more in-depth highlighting some of the key areas that our team are involved in across Inverclyde. The first one being adult and child protection. They are centrally managed by our team. They provide special support and training to our operational personnel in our community fire stations in regard to that. And the team also work closely with all other partners to ensure that relevant support is given to all individuals identified as requiring it. And where appropriate, they will assist in the provision of suitable protection and fire retardant equipment, and that will then be supplied by a team of partners for delivery to the vulnerable individuals in our communities. Fire Service Experiential Training, or FSEC as we refer to it, and this is a programme which is delivered by the team and is available to all our partners. And at this time I would urge anyone who would benefit from this training, whether that be personnel from any of the council departments or some of the elected members present, to contact the Community Action Team and we can arrange that. The programme is designed to give an enhanced understanding and awareness of fire-related hazards within the domestic environment, and it enables people to be able to identify anyone who may be at risk and then make a referral to us via the appropriate pathway to allow us to carry out early intervention. That early intervention will hopefully ultimately keep that person safe and avoid them becoming a statistic which we then report on to yourselves. The team is also a direct liaison with our partners via the Inverclyde Partnership Hub. Through this forum, they can raise issues that SFRS have encountered or share intelligence which our operational crews have gathered in the course of their duties within our communities with our partner agencies, for example, Police Scotland and ourselves at the local authority. I'll ask Paul to provide a bit more detail around this later. The team's wider partnership working also includes the delivery of fire safety input to the asylum seekers and refugees who have been accommodated within Inverclyde as part of the multi-agency support that's been provided to these members of the local community. I'm now going to cover one of the kind of major parts of the enhanced workload, and that is our youth engagement and education syllabus. The team engages young people within the educational system on several topics each year. These are named at specific year groups, and a large part of the team's education syllabus is delivered in partnership with Police Scotland, Key Division's Preventions and Interventions team. The topics that are covered in the syllabus are general fire safety for P3 to P5. This covers the fire safety code, fire evacuation, smoke detectors and dangers in the home. Water safety for P6. This covers the water safety code and the dangers associated with Scottish waterways. We have a primary bonfire presentation for P6 to 7. This covers safe bonfires, the fireworks code, relevant legislation, folks calls and attacks on fire-side personnel and equipment. Antisocial behaviour for S1. This covers all fire-related antisocial behaviour and applicable legislation, including deliberate fire setting, deliberate actuation of fire alarm systems, folks calls, hiding vandalism and attacks on firefighters. The secondary firework presentation aimed at S1 and S2, covering the same topics as that for the primary bonfire presentation, but delivered in a different manner to suit the age group concerned. Ice safety for S3. This is delivery of the Water Safety Scotland Ice Safety presentation. And road safety for S6, and that's for members of S6 age 16 plus. And there are 3 different road safety presentations to currently deliver as part of that topic. The team has an annual calendar with programmes in, youth engagement resources that are just covered at various points throughout the year, and the calendar is provided to our single point of contact within education to allow it to be circulated to the individual schools, giving them an opportunity to arrange for delivery of these sessions by the team. That said, although these sessions are programmed in for various points across the year, schools request us to deliver topics out with this, then for whatever reason they may be requesting that, we will still support those requests if the team's capacity allows us to do so. As the Commander has touched on, the team is highly qualified in youth engagement, and earlier this month they delivered the inaugural 5-day fire skills course within Inverclyde at Port Blackwood Community Fire Station. As I said, the course was in partnership and funded by Inverclyde Council and with input from our partners. 9 nominated young people from local schools undertook the 5-day course, which is aimed at building confidence and life skills, as well as providing education through carrying out parts of the role of a firefighter. During the week, they received presentations from our colleagues at Police Scotland and other partners. And again, I'll ask Paul to provide a bit more detail about fire skills just in a moment. Members of the team are also trained to deliver fire safety support and education. This programme involves personnel engaging with children and young people who have been referred to them via one of a number of routes due to an involvement in fire setting, malicious activation of fire alarm systems, folks calls, hydrant abuse or attacks on SFRS personnel. The FSSE advisors will build a positive relationship with the children and young people as well as their parents and carers. They deliver key safety messages and explain potential consequences of the behaviours that the child or young person have been involved in, including risk to themselves, the community, SFRS and property, with the aim of discouraging any further involvement in these negative behaviours. And at that, I will now hand over to Paul, who will provide some detail around the team's involvement in the Inverclyde Hub and our fire skills course. Thank you, Paul.
If you just allow me to give a wee bit more detail on the CAT team's involvement in the Inverclyde Partnership Hub and its loss to the fire skills. So the Inverclyde Partnership Hub is chaired by the Scotland partners. It meets 3 times a week, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Additional meetings on a Tuesday and a Thursday for housing partners. It's attended by the CAT team, police service, Inverclyde Council representatives from community safety and resilience, assist education, and Inverclyde HSCP homeless and alcohol and drug recovery service partners. Also attended by British Transport Police and various registered social landlords throughout Inverclyde.
The captain attends these meetings where we review all recent SFRS operational activity in order to take a partnership approach to prevention, sharing intelligence, and identifying opportunities for early intervention with individuals who are at risk of unintentional harm. As you know, the Everglades Partnership Hub was visited last September by the Minister for Victims and Community Safety, where each partner spoke about how they used the hub to achieve various outcomes. We spoke about our involvement with a vulnerable adult greener who had several dwelling fires. Captain liaised with the partners in ADRS, Police Scotland and the community wardens to create an opportunity to engage with the individual and build trust, where we were able to carry out several home fire safety visits and provide advice and equipment to make them safe from fire, while other partners employed a holistic, person-centred approach to addressing the individual's addictions and safeguarding needs. Another area where CAT have been heavily involved through the hub in recent years is in an Everglades area which has seen significant levels of willful fire raising and antisocial behaviour, mainly within the numerous derelict buildings in the area. Partnership working with Police Scotland, community wardens, and more recently with the Everglades Council Building Standards Service has been absolutely valuable. Regular sharing of operational and community intelligence has allowed us to find opportunities for preventative work and to identify various individuals' risk of harm. The mutual sharing of intelligence has also informed operational preparedness across all partners and has had a significant positive impact on firefighter, responder and wider community safety. Final example of work carried out the captain through the hub is in relation to antisocial behaviour within one particular Everglades ward. A working group was brought together at the request of elected members and residents of the ward to tackle antisocial behaviour at local duty spots during the spring and summer months last year. Various partners from the hub and outlet, including ScotRail, elected members and constituency MSP, carried out community engagement to reassure residents and inform them of the collaborative preventative approach that was being taken in preparing for the spring and summer period. Regular communication was established and all incidents of note were discussed at the hub, with the outcomes being shared between other interested parties as appropriate. Outcomes were shared at the ministerial visit to the hub last September, where a marked increase in incidents of antisocial behaviour were recorded against previous years. The plans are in place to employ the same approach this year. If I may now talk a wee bit about fire skills. Fire skills is a Scottish Fire and Rescue Youth Engagement Programme aimed at early intervention and delivery of youth engagement activities to prevent antisocial behaviour and deliver a fire setting. It can be delivered in many forms, and we've delivered many one-day courses, mainly within schools and at our base from the East Renfrewshire and Everglades Safety Centre at Paisley Fire Station. The course covers areas including teamwork, firefighting skills, communication skills, CPR and basic life support, and includes technical input on antisocial behaviour, home fire safety, road and water safety. The programme is very flexible and it can be tailored to provide a bespoke product that addresses the specific needs of the young people who have been referred. We're delighted to have recently delivered the first 5-day course to 9 young people from Glasgow Community Fire Station early last month. The course, as stated, was funded and co-delivered by Everglades Council and most specifically within CLD. And it was also supported from Police Scotland's preventions and interventions team, where they delivered input to the young people on antisocial behaviour and its consequences. Referrals of young people to participate in fire skills come through our local community safety and education partners, and in the case of our recent Everglades course, came through CLD. Close partnership links are imperative to ensure regular communication and receipt of high quality referrals targeted at young people most in need of this engagement, so we can tailor the course and content appropriately to their needs. The course culminated in a display where the young people were able to showcase the skills they had obtained throughout the week, and each and every young person who attended can take pride from their contribution to what was an impressive and adept exhibition of their newly acquired skills. We're also pleased to announce that funding is in place for future courses within Everglades, and talks have taken place between
I want to come.
In your shoreline line, talks have taken place between CLD partners across all three local authority areas. They're in the early stages of looking for opportunities to deliver joint courses that cover all three areas. Members and all elected members and community executive partners are welcome to attend future courses and see the display for yourselves. Finally, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to showcase the work of the Captain. It's just a small sample of the activities carried out, and we're more than happy to invite questions or comments on any of the content in this report.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. David, I don't think we realised the report was going to be so detailed. Could you send us on a copy of what we've heard today, please?
Thank you for your information. I was going to say that if you want something more visual in a presentation format, we can encapsulate giving you some notes that can help you so that you've got something to look and feel that that's what we do. I think you see from the work the community action team is, and every time we talk about engagement and intervention, it's never on our own. It's never just fire and rescue, it's always in conjunction with other people. I think sometimes we get used to people talking about a partnership approach, but it is in its true sense and understanding that we are one part of that intervention in that person's life. What we tend to find, whether it's fire casualties or on the day 5 fatalities, they tend to be, but not exclusively, a result of poor health outcomes. So if we can use our expertise and our to make an interaction in that person's life with the understanding that actually we need to then look to our other partners to see with their sphere of influence what they can do for them, that's where we get that collective approach. In this case, it's an intervention for young people. Paul's also given you an example where somebody also needs their assistance, not just in relation to keeping themselves safe from fire within the whole environment, actually other aspects of their life that are going to make them feel a wee bit more safe, a bit more secure, and a bit more connected to the community. So we can't do it on our own, but I hope we see just in that overview from Paul that it is wide ranging in terms of the number of engagements and activities. I will get that to you, Camille. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for Fire and Rescue? Councillor Moran?
Thank you. There's quite a lot going on here, I have to say,
Yes.
gentlemen. So, really, I always believe that prevention is better than cure, and I think the way you target it is through education. There's no doubt about that, because we know education works for the young people. I just think, if for something of a more serious nature, would the children's panel be involved at all? If would be a referral to them as well as yourselves, if it was a more serious aspect of the fire risk?
I mentioned this at another committee that Sarah McCall from Scotland sat in. There's a number of incidents earlier in the month, and one individual was arrested. We also had somebody convicted, I believe in Fraser Sheriff's Court, who was jailed for 4 years. And previously in Inverclyde, there's also been somebody convicted with local fires. The ages of those three individuals, 24, 24 and 39. So perhaps I felt particularly young when I was 24 and not the average person. So I absolutely concur with Councillor Moran said there. But I think it's important that we get it pitched right at the individuals posted in their intervention and make sure we work with them and start using them as a positive influence, not just with our colleagues of the same age, but as they're coming up through. We did after both fire skill course, one in East Renfrewshire and then one in Inverclyde. We have seen really positive feedback from the young people. So yes, a lot of the other factors can be around those times that it would indicate towards that it's young people, but we need to make sure that we're pitching at the right level and using them as part of the solution. Not the problem.
Thank you. Okay,
I just a follow-on, it used to be predominantly older men who come in with a few drinks of them and down the fry pan and chip pan, right? And that caused a lot of the fires. Yeah, one of the local RSLs I know have had an opportunity to give out the air fires and stuff like that to the people who are tenants. You think that's still the way forward? If we could adopt that technology to get away from the chip pan kind of thing, and are we doing any work with them? Could maybe they identify tenants they have it? Maybe you could do a bit of advice yourself, regarding changing the equipment to something more safer.
it's really quite timely you said that, Councillor. The Alliance Board recently discussed the reaction to the Community Empowerment Act in terms of the food growing strategy from everybody. And part of that was that a number of people have been trained to be community cooks. So being the selfish person I am, I look for an opportunity because many members will notice we know the accident well. The main cause remains cooking. And we've always looked, previously we've had what they call cook safe courses. I don't know if that particular platform still exists, but I've asked for a dialogue with the that paper together so we can see if there's something we can do there. You'll remember, Councillor, in the days of Strathclyde Fire and Rescue where we were changing people from chip pans to actually deep fat fryers. And I thought we were giving them away there. That being the whole of sale, went up supplying them with a third full of oil. You know, so we've always tried to make people safer in home, but absolutely it's something we can look at.
They're going to make you jealous here, but we had the old Strathclyde Fire and Rescue. We used to send them on the ocean youth trust as well.
That's right.
The young people. Maybe they did come back again. We can get some funding. God say, there's a couple of people, sons were on it, you know.
I think Lorraine Tinney's got her headline, chip fan fires.
So, you know what, that's fantastic if they got an opportunity.
Yeah, I know.
When I go up for a week, right, and I don't know how much it costs, but it'd be interesting if we could get that one again.
Yeah.
Give these young people an opportunity, a lifetime. We did do that, you know. We did do that.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions? Councillor Crowther.
Thank you, Convener. Within the next few months, the chances are as the land dries and before the new grass shoots come through, there's the possibility of quite a lot of hill fires. Now, much of that tends to be that the finger of guilt points towards certain people, but we are also aware that many of the farmers also have controlled fire. Yeah. And there was legislation, I think it was Muirburn. I haven't actually read through the legislation as such, and not sure of what the implications would be for the likes of yourselves. But where it's the farmers with the controlled fires, is there any cooperation between yourself and the farmers so that they give you notification that they are actually having a controlled fire? It's just so that you're not called out unnecessarily to hill fires when in fact it's a controlled fire.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, so some farmers will notify us, they will contact our control room to inform them that they are doing controlled burn. They don't have to, there's no legal requirement for them to do so, and even if they do so, if there are enough calls come in, our control will probably still make an attendance just to investigate it in case it turns out to be something other than what they've been notified of. But we will attend some hill fires that are called into us, which will turn out to be controlled burning, but that's because there is no legal requirement for them to inform us. In terms of support, we do support the controlled burn within the agriculture community with supporting the messaging around about the Muirburn Code. So we will communicate that via our social media outlets, and that will direct them to the Scottish Government Muirburn Code, which gives them guidance on how they can safely do that. And within that, it will direct them to ourselves if they want any further advice. There is a contact detail in there for them to get in contact with the service, and we provide them with further guidance about how they can do that safely and avoid unnecessary calls for ourselves.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Councillor Clockerty, you're in at the death.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. It's just very briefly. I know this is not a normal report cycle, but you did touch upon willful fire racing, derelict houses. I think it's only right that us as a committee just do an appreciation. We do know there's certain areas in the play that your members of staff put themselves in the jeopardy when they're called out for some of these fires. We don't go there, we don't need to say it, but it's just to say that in this bit we do recognise, and obviously the normal reporting cycle will down, it will come up at that point in time, but I think it's only right to say that we do recognise that there is an awful lot of pressure on the fire service in some of these derelict properties that these are going out to, and it's just to convey our thanks for doing that. And it's partnership, because we know the police are involved in that as well, and our own council workers. So Again, through yourself, convener, it's just to pass on that thanks.
Well done, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor.
Here, here.
And it is important to recognise, again, what I said at the start about that partnership working with the chair. Our priority is always firefighter and public safety, and that will always remain the case. There will be occasions where there are other pressures and other challenges for ourselves and our partners for specific reference to some areas, but be safe and always that we work best we can so we've got up to date information that we keep our crews and public safety.
Thank you. Councillor Maguire, I noticed you dropped out, but you're back in again. If you've got a question, I'm sure you could direct it to Chief Inspector Damien Kane, and he will answer your question after the meeting. Thank you. Now,
Yeah,
gents,
that's fine. I think most people have already asked the question. Thanks, convener.
okay, thank you. Gentlemen, I've got a bit of light relief for you. In our visit to Govan, the Chief Superintendent there of the 999 call centre was taking us through what could happen. And he did say to us at one stage, we get some calls that are not really meant for us. He said, there's one instance where this lady phoned up and said, there's been a fire. And he said, my call handler said, why don't you call the fire brigade? Well, she said, I'm not calling the fire brigade, I'm calling the police because this is just a wee fire. That really tickled me.
Just for friends, noting we do refires.
Could I make that you, Scott, please, for agenda item number 4?
Thank you very much, convener. This is just a standard report for work that's been carried out at a national level by the boards who are responsible for Scotland and also fire services. In my report under 3.1 gives you an update of the last meeting of the Scottish Police Authority Board, and that is a number of items that was on that agenda. Under the next thing is invite you again, Councillor Wilson, you chair, you've talked about the visit to Germany and Call. Thank you very much for arranging that from colleague. It was very helpful for councillors in our office for that. Under point 5 is again, it's just work that the fire service is doing at the board level. I'm happy to get any questions on the report. Just before I move on to other business, just on the safety, and I touched on it earlier on staying safe over Easter. It's very important that we let our parents aware of some of the things that's going on. And within this letter that's been sent out by all panels, including the chair, signed it off, was that young people are aware there's a number of diverse activities going on over the Easter holidays for them to take part, but it's also make sure that our young people and the families stay safe. And thank you very much again to the parents to participate in that, and all the messages being sent out to every parent within our school. Happy to get any questions on that.
Thank you, Hugh. Any questions? Councillor Brennan.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Thanks very much, Hugh, for that report. Yeah, so I know we obviously really love the Durnavacol visit. It's been a resounding success, and I think those of us who were able to make that time to attend really got back tenfold what was on offer to us from Police Scotland and local officers and national as well. That really grateful for that experience. I don't even know if Journey of a Call sums it up exactly, because it felt like so much more than that and so much more meaningful. Thanks also because it's come up in this report about the drug enforcement work that's going on recently locally, and I suppose also, you know, significant recoveries across the whole of Scotland. Thanks to everyone who was involved in that operation. I just wanted to touch a wee bit on 3.6, the domestic abuse prevention campaign, and I know it's maybe not for yourself to answer at this time. Chief Superintendent also mentioned the DISAS, the disclosure scheme as well, and I suppose it's just really interesting to see, and I think it probably confirms what we would have already thought, that the majority of requests coming through that scheme are coming from police officers or other professionals. And I see that the social media campaign that's mentioned in there may have been to try and promote it to members of the public, because I think that's something that is important to say, that that's a scheme that's open really to everyone who's got that concern. And I think seeing these statistics laid out here just made me wonder if we feel we've got that balance right yet in terms of the requests coming through. Are they coming from everybody that we would expect them to come from, really? Just that balance, if it's really professionals that are putting them in and not necessarily members of the public. It's great that they are being put in because it's a really, really valuable tool to prevent crime and to prevent abuse. I don't know whether you can answer that or yourself at this point. Thank you.
Are your lights on ready?
Yeah, thank you, Erin. And as I said already, I'm very passionate about. So there's a couple of aspects. I think there's always opportunity for us as professionals to improve the power to tell aspect. You know, and when you look at the definition of professionals, we all think about the statutory partners around the room, but actually it's the people who are engaged in hairdressing services, and you might think, what kind of locus does that person have? But they may see signs and symptoms of abuse, you know, people being controlled and how long they can spend at particular premises, etc. So it's beyond statutory professionals, is my first message. And the next part is the right to ask is beyond the individual who's in the relationship. So it's about family members, friends, those who have got a concern. I've seen a regression perhaps in terms of their social engagement, perhaps less outgoing in respect of their social commitments, more discerning around the clothing in which they wear or etc. All indications of patterns of control, coercive control. They too have the right to ask on behalf of the individual whether or not this is an appropriate relationship. So are there enough people applying? No. I think there are many more that could be using it. The other thing that we do need to accept, and I think of one individual in particular who gave us a presentation, is that no matter how many times we tell somebody that they're in an abusive relationship, or perhaps in a relationship with somebody who's had an abusive past, they themselves have to make the choice to leave that relationship. And sometimes, as she said to me, it was the planting of the seed that was the first step, and we had to step back and allow that seed to grow. And that was coming from somebody who went on to suffer a broken jaw, unfortunately, at the hands of a very strong individual man. So, yeah, lots more we can be doing now.
Okay, Francesca, you want to follow up?
Just very briefly, just thanks very much for that. And as you say, there's always more work to be done, because I think in these reports what we're seeing is, you know, we're targeting men, we're putting out that information, we're finding out what they can do to take responsibility. We do have these schemes available. We're also seeing work mentioned there in terms of going on with young people as well to try and kind of promote it in schools to do all that. So I think, as you say, it's just keeping that focus on it as you're assuring me that you're doing.
Can I have a shameless plug for something? Thank you. Just in this very area, as a result of the training that Police Scotland did for 22,000 officers, and we did 14,000 full days of engagement using victims of abuse and advocacy groups. There was a tool produced by the Scottish Government, the support of Police Scotland and others, called the Domestic Abuse Awareness Raising Tool. And it is available for everybody, from the hairdresser to the social worker to the police officer or a family member. It's a really easy to use 40-minute package. I know we're all probably immune to online training at the minute, but it is very accessible and engaging and is available for free.
Well, I'm sure our officers have noted that. Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any questions in the chamber. I don't see any online. I would just like then to thank the representatives of the police and the fire and rescue service for your contributions today, to our own officers for attending, and colleagues, I wish everybody a very happy and quiet Easter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.